What do you do with the toilet paper that's in your composting toilet when you harvest out your Humanure? Well, a guy asked me that in response to some video I had. It's a reasonable question. Well, one thing is this. You can definitely dump the toilet paper in. You do not need to buy a special kind of toilet paper. I mean, I suppose you could get one without fragrances in it or something like that, but I don't really think that's the biggest issue in the world. So don't use some kind of toxic toilet paper. But if somebody tries to sell you a special toilet paper for your composting toilet, then you can just assume that they're a kind of a rip-off type person. Avoid that person. And anything else they're selling too. So just throw it in the chamber with your shit, and the thermophilic bacteria will process the shit, and then you'll let it rest, which it's still working, for another 6 months. And you know what? There will still be bits of toilet paper in there when you harvest it out and you use it as fertilizer. Now, you get a surprisingly small amount of fertilizer out of composting toilets. Like, I don't even really use it. If you are putting in sawdust or something afterwards, don't put in ashes. That's dumb. We're trying to encourage thermophilic bacteria. We're not trying to kill it. You've got a pretty carbon-rich environment then, or carbon-rich Humanure, so it may not be actually the most rich compost you can imagine. Some people have also brought up that it could have, like, hormones in it. If people are taking like birth control pills, or it could have medicines or drugs. And that is true, that sewer systems around the world, they've measured that there's a bunch of weird shit in it or weird shit in the shit, because people put weird shit in their bodies. So that could be a reason not to use Humanure on crops and things. Now, I would imagine that if you used it in an orchard, that stuff isn't going to get all the way up through the tree into the fruits anyway. But if you want to be conservative about it and you want to make people happy that you're not using shit to make food for them, human shit, they're usually fine with like cow shit and other stuff. But the cows are also given chemicals sometimes. I don't think the cows around here are given much. But, I think, like I can order sheep shit, cow shit, horse shit, and that makes great compost, and then you can use it. Well, you have to compost it first. Now, you can use rabbit shit just straight on your stuff. That's an exception because they're just cleaner, nicer animals. And especially because I colony raise them, right? And then chicken shit you have to compost because it's a little hot. I don't know what that means, but maybe it's too acidic, or I don't know what it is. But the point is that this Humanure thing is really not that big a problem. Now, I'm just one person, so I haven't emptied out composting toilet for like 6 or 8 years because I just don't produce enough material. It's irrelevant. So I just dump it outside the toilet. I just dig it out of there, dump it out. But there's a couple other things going on. Oh, and there are bits of toilet paper in that. So I could empty it out just before the rains come. And then guess what? The toilet paper will disintegrate in the rain because it's unsightly. It's not that it's unhealthy. It just makes the compost look ugly because there's bits of toilet paper in it, right? That's the issue. So, now in my case, I actually don't just have thermophilic bacteria. I also have dung beetles and composting worms in my toilets. And so those are going to cause more movement within the pile and probably going to rip up some of the toilet paper a little bit more because it's a moving system. I don't personally get in there with a shovel ever and turn it. I think that's a waste. I want a toilet that you don't have to do any maintenance for. It's the entire point. Never have to hire a plumber. Keep it simple, Don't make any work for yourself. And in my case, my chambers are like a meter by a meter by a meter. And like I said, it takes years and years to get those even halfway full. And so if you had more people, that would be different. Let's say you had 10 people. Well, then you might want to be more strict about your planning out your 6-month schedule. And if it's filling up too much, maybe build another one. And having 2 toilets is handy, because what if somebody's sitting on the toilet for a while and somebody else has to use it? Well, it doesn't cost that much to have 2 available seats at all times. And when you think about like festival level, you could build just more of them and then have less in use when you're not during your festival season. Like, for example, I had a big group of about 65 people here, and so I opened up both sides of the toilet, and then I just knew that, well, you know, because you should keep a list of like when you harvest it and whether it was open or not, and I just knew, okay, I'm not going to harvest this for a very long time, like over 6 months. That's generally the rule. Now, I actually believe that mine compost much faster because the bigger chamber, because I have a lot more already composted stuff, and I have the worms and the dung beetles doing all this work, and so that's more living stuff to attack any new material. So there's efficiencies in scale if you scale it up. And if you really wanted to go nuts, you could have a whole, you know, waterproof shipping container or refrigerated container, and you could have that delivered to a festival like Burning Man and have stairs to it or a ramp to keep it accessible. And you could actually have people shit in that, and that would serve a lot of people. Now, that may not make sense at Burning Man because you want a lot of porta potties in a lot of spots, but porta potties are really dumb. Because first, urine should be handled separately when you can, right? Don't use a diversion toilet, like where it diverts the poo and the pee in the toilet seat. Those are dumb. I just can't imagine that they wouldn't be dirty. I can't imagine they would work perfectly, you know? And I don't want to clean anything. They just seem like dumb. So make your system so it can handle it. But you could have, at Burning Man, for example, ways that people can pee easier, and even have an evaporator. So people could pee in a seat thing. It's a little advanced, and we're starting to come up with these other solutions for other cases, other use cases. But it could be that they could pee into a thing, and they could actually be peeing into their water bottles, those 5-gallon ones, and have a seat on top of it. You could design something like this, and there's a funnels it all into the water thing. Now, that might be a little gross because I think those water things get reused. So if you were to turn it back in, I'm not sure that would be that great. So you might want to dedicate those containers for pee. But then Burning Man itself, this kind of goes against the values of Burning Man, could provide a evaporator that actually heats up that pee and evaporates it off. So people can walk up there with their pee jug, dump it into a thing, and it would only accept pee, right? And then it would evaporate it off, and there'd be almost nothing left. You know, that might be away from people. Maybe there'd be a smell involved. But pee smells worse when it's old. So hopefully it wouldn't be that old, right? Burning Man's a very special case. But, you also think about places where infrastructure is difficult. Now, I live out in the woods here, so I can just pee wherever I want. And I don't even have to squat down because of my plumbing is allows for that. One of the few benefits of being a dude. And women can even learn to pee standing up as well. It is possible. Just a little more difficult. So I tend to divide it not as male-female for that, but just people who like to pee sitting down and people who pee standing up. And so I do have a pee garden, which has a seat, and you can sit down and pee. The pee goes down through a hose, and it goes down to some bamboo that I have down there, which we don't harvest as food. And that bamboo is very happy, right? It likes moisture. Certainly doesn't mind the fertilizer that's in the pee. And if I have separate systems for pee and poo, you can still pee a little bit in the poo one, but you've lightened your liquid load then on your composting toilet. A lot. People pee a lot more than they poo. And so we want to get that out of the composting toilet, because I did have one event where I had a bunch of people, and everybody was peeing in the toilets because that's what people are used to doing. And it was too liquidy and it started to smell. That's the only problem I've ever had with my toilets. I mean, I've always imagined somebody might drop something in it, and that would be bad. But that's a reason to have a locking compost toilet door and have the key be available so that you can go and offer someone help and open it up and they can go get their phone or whatever they dropped in there. That's never happened. Like, people should not drop shit in the toilet. The other strange issue that you could bring up would be feminine hygiene products, or things like condoms, I guess. And those should not be dumped in the composting toilet, mainly because it's gross. And I think that, feminine hygiene products, those could just, I have a lot of space here. You could just fucking hang your tampon or your pad on a branch or something, So figure that out. Condoms, I don't know, stick it in a Ziploc and take it home or something, but don't let a dog run around with it. If you did dump it in the toilet, it would still go through the composting process, but then you'd have, I assume that the latex would not biodegrade, and that it would look kind of gross. So I don't think you should dump condoms in there. Also, what are you going to do? Fuck in your tent and then walk over to the composting toilet and then dump it in there? That seems very inconvenient. I don't like that. Any other weird details on use of composting toilets? No, I think that covers it. But yeah, that Humanure isn't necessarily super useful. It's not bad, and it will have pieces of TP in it probably. Some people in their cultures, they dump the poo rags into a little garbage can next to the toilet. Don't do that here. In fact, I have a sign up. There's a sign posted in the toilets that if you're a guy and you're just going to pee, go find a tree. It's stated in a cute way. And then don't dump your feminine products in it. Just figure something else out for those. So that's it. And I guess for feminine products, actually, Diva cups, or menstrual cups, I guess they're called. Diva cup is a brand. Menstrual cups are very handy. I don't personally menstruate, but I've known women who did, and they just wash them off or something, and it's quite easy and not a problem. So there's your extra tips for weird details on using composting toilets. Good luck to you, and definitely don't poo in clean water. Never do it. Every time you do it, feel guilty. And know that everybody around you is horrible because they don't have a better option built for you. There's even places that have laws against it. You have to poo in clean water. They really want you to. That's because they want you to be needing them to process your sewage. And that's terrible. So get rid of all that centralized bullshit control system stuff. Goodbye. Ha ha ha!